Ready? Hey, everybody, it's Craig Syracuse of Walk in Faith. I'm honored to be sitting down with my good friend, Lucas Miles. You might know him. He's a pastor, an entrepreneur, an author. He has a production company, a church. I mean, I could just keep going on and on, but let's stop there. Lucas, how are you doing?
Craig, I'm doing well. It's good to be on the show and good to connect, even virtually here.
Thank you. So now, where are you now? You're in South Bend, Indiana, right? Is that correct?
Yeah, so South Bend, Indiana. It's Granger, Indiana. We're a suburb of South Bend and very close. A lot of people know the University of Notre Dame, so that's about 12 minutes up the road here.
And so we're in New Jersey. You know, my family's in Brooklyn. I haven't been going to Brooklyn too much, but what is it like in South Bend? Are you guys shelter in place? What's the orders?
Yeah, so we're currently shelter in place. I need to look at the calendar. I think we started on the 16th of March. So we've, it's about the time the rest of the country, I think. Probably East and West Coast was a little bit ahead of us, but so it's been like this for a few weeks now. Essential businesses only. So fortunately, I own a media company and pastor at a church. Both of those are considered essential in Indiana. So we have some ability to kind of operate, but things are obviously slowed down. We're trying to really stay at the house as much as we can, doing a lot of virtual work here, turning guest bedrooms into studios and all those kind of things in the meantime. And but it's interesting. You go out. I mean, hitting the grocery store. My parents are. My dad's in his 70s, so I'm doing a lot of shopping, kind of dropping stuff off for them at times, and other church members. And there's just you're starting to see more and more masks. When you're going places, and it's starting to really become the norm.
So you mentioned now about, going shopping, which I haven't been doing that much, but so now you're a pastor, right? You have a parish, you have a lot of parishioners, and you're used to being sort of, if somebody calls you, you're able to come by their side, pray over them, pray with them. Yeah. How are you handling this now? I mean, I know actually a lot of priests that actually contracted the virus. A few of them passed. Deacon passed away today from Brooklyn. So what's happening? I mean, obviously, whether you're a celebrity, a man of God, we can all catch it. So how are you able to balance that? I mean,
yeah. So, our ministry, I don't want to say that I, saw this coming by any means. I never imagined, a pandemic like this would be a factor the way that it has. But I started seeing a few years back, obviously, the need to go more and more virtual with our ministry, for a variety of reasons, to reach more people, to, you and I, we lived through the 9/11 days, which a lot of our, millennial friends maybe don't recall as much. But, I saw how the world shut down during that. And I thought, we just need to get ahead of the curve and make sure that we're always able to reach people. So, fortunately, our ministry was a little bit ahead of the curve in having a live stream facilitating already, doing a lot of digital ministry, having, digital submissions for prayer requests. That we would do, have just a wonderful team of volunteers that are really able to jump on things. We also have text to give and, online giving. So some of those sort of internal mechanisms that really help the church operate, we've been able to transition those already to digital. So when this hit, we were just kind of able to go, full board into that side of it. So, as far as the day-to-day pastoring and helping people, I'm doing virtual counseling calls. I'm doing a lot of, texting, a lot of Facebook live sort of things just to really help minister to the needs of the people.
Wow. That's interesting. I was talking to a couple of Catholic priests this week, and, one of them actually set up their Instagram account. And, the Catholic Church, from most of the priests that I know, they didn't really use social media that much. And, but they were able to transition. And I mentioned to one about text to give, and they weren't really sure or familiar with what that was. Today, I was able to donate some money through different websites and stuff like that, because obviously we can't go to the parish. But
right.
Now what happens, and this is a concern of mine, mostly I would say from some of the Catholic Church or some of the people that are on social media that are really connected to their faith, using social media the way that we would love for social media to be used. And do you think that when life goes back to the new normal, will the church, will the people, will they sort of say, okay, God, go back in the closet? I made a joke the other day. I said, God's not someone you call when you need to move a couch. He's someone that you want to build a relationship with. Are people going to say, forget all about it and say, back to their daily lives?
It's yet to be seen. I mean, my gut is that, and I like to consider myself a little bit of a futurist. I definitely, try to be forward thinking with that and forecast. The world's changed, and whether we like it or not, I don't know as though it's going to go back to the way it was. anytime soon and possibly ever. You know, in the back of people's minds, I mean, if May 1st or June 1st, whatever it becomes, you know, Trump stands at the in the press room and says, "Hey, everybody, we're good. Go back about your lives. Thanks for, you know." I mean, well, people are still going to be washing their hands more frequently. They're still going to be probably a little bit cautious on shaking. You're going to have some, you know, really fearless extroverts that are out there just trying to love on everybody, I'm sure. But I think that a lot of us are still going to have some degree of caution. And the other thing, you know, they're talking about second wave, third wave of this. Does it hit again in the fall? Does it hit again in the spring? And so I think that we're looking at a solid 12 months at least of some very interesting times, even if stay orders are lifted. And so I think that, you know, to ministries out there, if they haven't really started using social media, other digital platforms, live streaming, man, we need to, you know, we need to really pivot and head back to that.
No, I totally agree with you on there. And I think I was talking the other day about, like you said, going back to the new normal. And I was talking to somebody about, you know, a chiropractor, a doctor, a family owns restaurants, even a priest. And I said, how are you going to do Eucharist distribution, the holy water, shaking hands? I mean, all these things that we, you know, going to a restaurant, sitting so close to somebody. I mean, this has impacted so many people in so many different ways that for us to go back to the old normal, like you said, I don't think that's going to happen anytime soon. But this is also creating a lot of new opportunities. You know, whether it's using social media, using Zoom. You know, a lot of businesses now are finding new ways to you know, create sources of revenue, which I find to be interesting. Like Texas Roadhouse actually sells the meat now, which is interesting.
Oh, wow.
And Chili's is selling beer and alcohol, and it's like, you know, so they're finding ways to, you know, sort of maximize whatever profits they can make. So they're falling into other businesses and other models, delivery services, stuff like that. So there are a lot of opportunities. And now I'm very curious. The other day I read on, I think it was Instagram, you were on a phone call with the White House, and I know you were invited to the prayer breakfast a few months back. Are you able to share the inner workings and the secrets of what the White House conversation was? I'm very curious.
So, you know, I've been really fortunate with, you know, my work both in media as well as in the church. It allows me to kind of cross that veil back and forth a little bit, you know, within these different circles. I've been to the National Prayer Breakfast a couple times. Was there this year. And then there is and this is, you know, a lot of people might not be aware of this. There's a pastoral call, and, you know, especially during times like this, it's a weekly call. So there's actually another one on this Wednesday that I'll be on as well with the White House. They're you know, they're advertising that Trump's going to be on the conference call this week. And, you know, this past week it was leaders from WHO, it was leaders from CDC. They had the Surgeon General was on, and they were giving some of these new guidelines, you know, before it kind of hit the news cycle that the new guideline was going to be suggesting that everybody wear masks. You know, I was able to hear that first on that call. You know, they were talking about things like really encouraging churches to continue to use live stream, to use, you know, although, yes, you have some constitutional rights to be able to have meetings and such like that, you know, to play it safe and to take care of your people. I mean, I really think that this administration, probably more so than anyone that I've ever seen, is very conscious of the rights of churches, the religious liberties, but, you know, they're also really trying to make a call for pastors to lead the charge and helping people to stay safe and make sure that we're protecting everybody. So there was a lot of just, you know, everything from practical tips on how we can do that, you know, within our buildings. That speaking of guidelines, this is where, you know, it's probably been a little bit more challenging to continue ministering. You know, we have an outreach to an assisted living complex that we have had that partnership for over a year now, about a year and a half. And, you know, we can't go in there. And even early on, you know, we saw this kind of coming, and we said, look, we have to hold all meetings there. We just have to make sure, like, that's a population we have to keep safe. And so and that's also a population that struggles with technology.
Yes.
So, you know, those two things together make it very difficult to continue ministering. So we're trying to pivot by getting some of the staff to set up, you know, a live streaming, you know, station for them on Sunday mornings where they can watch our services. But, you know, a lot of the hands-on praying for, encouraging, you know, hug, you know, sort of aspects of ministry, you know, it's really just kind of on hold or just being done over a digital platform. So the administration is offering a lot of tips to ministries. They were also talking a lot about some of the guidelines for the loan applications and the PPP funding, the payroll protection plan, and how that, really the first time ever that's been now offered to nonprofits and specifically to churches. So that was a big bulk of the call this last week. So we'll see what this week offers as well. But they've just been very helpful in trying to help make sure that pastors are able to continue to do what they do during this time. I think they see the need, and they really recognize that the church is an essential resource and operation within this country and really around the world.
That's beautiful. That's beautiful to know that that you are able to get some sort of financing and some backing. Now, I mean, has giving gone down? I mean, I know they say during crisis, people give less. Curious, have you been affected by that? And also, just out of curiosity, I know I was talking to a priest today, and he had 5 funerals today in one day. And he explained sort of the process of a funeral. I'm not sure if you guys have been hit, if your parish has been hit with any funerals. I'm just curious.
Very thankful so far. We've had nobody reported sick from our congregation. So we have about 200 people that are kind of in our immediate, fold. And nobody yet that we're aware of. We do have several of our volunteers are kind of calling regularly everybody on our list to make sure that we're getting updates. If anybody's not feeling well, we have a series of questions that we're asking them just to stay up on those things. And, but, very, very fortunately, I just keep speaking and praying Psalm 91 over our body and believing that we're not going to see this affect us. But, He's given us favor and protection. He's also given us wisdom. And those things, I think a lot of people, need to recognize those things go hand in hand. Within our local ministry, we've certainly seen this affect us financially. I would say it's not to a point of where it's critical, for us personally. I think a lot of that is because we were ahead of the curve digitally. But, depending upon how long this shutdown goes, that's what's going to really affect it. We've had a few people, write us and say, hey, I was really tempted to kind of scale down my giving, but I've decided I'm going to raise it during this time, and that they really see the need of, operating in faith and, that, taking seriously when the Bible says that, he who refreshes others will himself be refreshed. And so, we're down, certainly a percentage or so, each week because we don't have that kind of cash and check regular giving. But even some of the people that were giving by cash or check, they're now starting to reach out to us and say, hey, how do I get on this text to give thing? How do I get on this, maybe auto deduct? And, our live stream on Facebook, we have a text to give number that whole time up there on the screen, so that anybody watching that, if they want to give $5 or $10, they can go there and they can do that. And every little bit helps. It makes a difference.
No, that's great. I mean, today, actually, I did 3 different ministries because I thought about it too. I said, I'm not going to church. I was fortunate though in New Jersey, I think it was Monday or Tuesday or last week, I was able to go and pray. And I was able to give a donation, but now we're not able to go at all. And, I'm reading about that too, that during a crisis, like I said, a lot of people, for some reason, they don't feel the need to give, but yet they feel the need to pray and ask God for help and guidance and protection, but then they don't feel like they need to tithe. So what are some of the things that people have been asking for in terms of prayer? Has it been, and have you seen like people that you really haven't spoken to in the past reach out to you and reconnect with their faith?
I just had a girl that I went to high school with, graduated with, and I've seen her, a few times since high school and had some interaction with her, but limited. And she just reached out to me and said, hey, she lives in this area. She said, hey, I just want to let you know my mom is in the hospital on a ventilator, and came down positive for COVID. And, I need prayer for her. And so that was just a Facebook message. So I called her right away and was walking my dog, and I'm walking the neighborhood with my Doberman, praying for this gal's mom. And we're getting a lot more requests like that. I'm also seeing, another layer of care that maybe wasn't expected on this is the mental health component. Yes. I'm getting messages from millennials that are saying like, Pastor, I don't know what to do. I'm losing my mind during this time. And not just like I'm bored, but I feel like life doesn't matter. I don't have a purpose. Like I can't do anything. And it's really exposing to such a high degree of what we've attached our value to and our identity to. And so, if your identity was in your work and all of a sudden you can't work for a couple months, like who am I? If your value was in my, the fact I can make a living or the fact that, I can do this hobby or this passion that I love, and that's taken from you. Who am I? And so it's really forcing us. You might have saw me post this. I just read through the epistles of St. Ignatius. And I mean, it'd been I'd read some of them. I don't think I'd ever read them all the way through. He's got 7 letters. And to see that this guy, the whole time he's in captivity, getting ready, really a slave, getting ready to be thrown into the lions within this amphitheater. And he's just writing with such passion, and just this fervor of, I can't wait to be connected with Christ. And if that means I have to go through the lion's mouth in order to do it, so be it. I'm going to welcome the lions, because they're going to be my gateway to Jesus. And, this level of I'm all in and God is my Lord and I'm sold out and man, Jesus is the Lord of my life. It's just a layer of faith that I think is very foreign to most people. And I got done reading, I put it down. I told my wife, I was like, I don't even know if I'm a Christian, and I mean, I said that kind of joking, like this guy puts us all to shame so much. Like, man, if I could even have just a glimpse of that passion with which he carries, wow, it's just amazing.
I love that. And I love that you said, I asked this question, who am I? And I was thinking about that today as I was listening to something. And I was asking the question the other day and just reflecting on, like you said, a lot of everything has been stripped from us, right? Everything that we idolize, everything, from our jobs to our work. And then this gives us the time to really reevaluate, what am I doing in my life? Am I doing what God has called me to do? So I love that question. Who am I? Not what do I do?
Yeah.
Not I'm a doctor and this, who am I? And for a millennial, for kids out there, for anyone out there that's sort of in a job and not doing their work, this time is really giving us the ability to think about that and say, is this what God has called me to do? Or did I just settle and I'm just doing a job and I'm not really fulfilled in my work? Because everything has been stripped away from us. So I love that you said that. I love the fact that we have this time to really think about what has God called me to do? Because look, this is our work. This is not my job.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. I could really sit on the couch and eat bonbons and, shout out to Peggy Bundy. And I could sit there and do nothing. But instead, because it's my work, I found a way to continue to do it. Put the suit on, do it from my house, stream live, because this is what I was called to do. So let me ask you, you're a positive guy, right? What about how do you stay, because people are calling you, people are relying on you. How are you staying in faith, connected to your faith when, everyone's looking for you for guidance? And how are you staying, connected and strong in your faith during these pandemic times?
Yeah, and let me speak to maybe 2 sides of that, because there's people, I'm a positive guy. I'm also I talk all the time about grace plus hustle. I'm constantly, even if I don't have anything to do, I'm going to find something to do, and I don't just mean tinkering around the house, but how can I make a difference in this world? How, who needs donation? Who needs masks? We've done a lot of stuff facilitating masks around our community, trying to get ladies in the church and different places to start sewing them together, and guys as well, to really help resource and do as much as we can. There's some people out there though that they're still working, they're bankers, they're restaurant workers, they're first line medical workers. And so, for them, they're not, I just got the phone with my banker a little bit ago and he's like, I was up till 5 a.m. on Monday. I was up till 3 a.m. last night. And so there's some people that are working harder than ever at their regular day job. And I think how they stay encouraged on the move is maybe somewhat different than how some of us that are just shelter in place at home that, don't really have our job operating the same way, can stay encouraged. And so, for me this morning, again, took my dog on a walk. I threw on some worship music in the headphones. And man, I walked 2 miles. I've been jogging a little bit, exercise. I've exercised more than the last 3 weeks than I have in the last 2 years combined, But it's reading, it's prayer, it's walking with God, it's being thankful. What can I be thankful for right now? There was somebody that wrote me here recently, just going through a lot of discouragement. I was just asking them, who can you give back to? Who can you encourage? Where can you help at? What sort of gifts has God given you that you can use to pivot to maybe impact somebody else? And so much of really depression, anxiety, depression is typically a too much of a focus on the past. Mm-hmm. And so we're walking in, shame and guilt about all these different things and hopelessness. And anxiety is typically a futuristic emotion of what's going to happen, what's coming in the future. And, really to take control of both of those things, we have to see that our hope is in him, and that at the end of the day, anything I'm going through, as Paul says, is light and momentary. And so I'm going to keep my fixation on what is coming. And I don't mean in the next week, I mean in eternity. Mm-hmm. And that helps empower me in the short term to go, look, this life, it's not about my 401k, or for us pastors, our 403b. Yes. At the end of the day, it's really about, am I connected to the Lord? Can I hear from him? Can I walk with him? And am I fellowshipping with him? And then how can I bring as many people into the kingdom as possible?
Interesting. So now let's say somebody out there that is not a follower of Christ, doesn't read the Bible, hasn't read the Bible. What are some practical things they could do? Yeah. Or is there something they can look up or read or reflect on? What would you say to them?
I think a lot of people, and I would say that those are maybe have questions about their faith or have gone through, I call it post-traumatic church disorder. They were maybe in church for a time, but they got really beat up by religion in some way, maybe offended about money or had a bad experience with a pastor or something like that. And, I think that they are dealing with the question is why do bad things happen? Mm-hmm. And I think that question is on a lot of people's minds. And, there's some goofy answers out there in religion, certainly, and some religious figures that have stood up and talked about the greater purpose behind this and why God's doing this and why he's allowing that. For me personally, I think it's a poor understanding of Scripture. I wrote a book called Good God, and I call it really PR for God. I think it's a book that anybody who is maybe considering aspects of faith and trying to discern can grab a hold of and recognize that God's not the cause of our pain. And so, we're able to, once we see that God's not causing the bad situation, we're able to recognize that maybe he's actually for us and he's going to help us walk through this in a way. And so in that book, I go through the book of Job. I go through a lot of passages on discipline and testing, trying to make sense of those things, helping people to really, see God's character in maybe a new light, using the Bible as the paradigm. But I think if somebody's just, approaching Scripture for the first time, reading the book of John, taking a look, reading the book of John, taking a look at maybe some of the Gospels, seeing Jesus's life, even looking at Proverbs or Psalms is going to give people some first steps in terms of how they can maybe approach God and really start to walk through this.
I love that. So just one last thing before we go. What opportunities, or is anything sort of, have you thought about anything new during this period, during this quarantine? Was it a new book or a new show or a new podcast? I mean, you must have been inspired by something. I'm just curious, what have you been inspired by? And what do you plan on doing?
So, I'm really asking myself a lot of ways, like, how do I pivot? And not just during this, short-term thing, but, what does life look after this? How does that change? I'm honestly, this digital thing, I'm kind of loving, and I think that,
hey,
obviously,
I'm suited. I'm home. I mean, I love.
Yeah, right. I'm doing an interview in a t-shirt. It's funny. I sent like all of my clothes to the dry cleaners right before this hit. So all my stuff I would typically wear for interviews is locked in a dry cleaner that's totally shut down for the next 3 months.
I think a dry cleaner is essential at this point.
It should be if it's not. So I need to go check. But it's. One of the things I'm doing a lot more of, I typically do my podcast, The Lucas Miles Show, which, we've done audio only. We have some episodes that are video. We've started doing more and more. I've had done 100 episodes and, guests. I know you've worked with Mario Lopez before. He's been on the show. Kathy Lee Gifford. I just did a big one with Candace Bure. And, so that's been exciting. I'm sure I'm going to keep doing that. But I've started launching these Instagram live videos. And so I'm calling them Almost Live with Lucas Miles. And so I'm doing a duo split screen interview on Instagram, and we're doing it live, but then later I'm going to be reposting these on IGTV so that people can see, and that's where the Almost Live with Lucas Miles is. So you'll see the comments and the questions that people are posting while we're doing it live. So I just had Madeline Carroll on, who was in I Can Only Imagine. Had Nikki Hahn, who was a Disney actress, on last night. Have a few more scheduled. I believe I have Chris Brown from Elevation Worship is going to be on here soon. And so doing a lot more of those, and it's just so quick. There's no editing hardly involved. You're slapping the logo at the front and kind of getting it out there. So I just think that this casual kind of fast-paced social media thing is becoming more and more the norm. And there's a place for that high production value, but I like kind of that raw aspect of even really what we're doing right now.
I agree. And I advise people too. I was saying the other day that you don't, like you said, you don't need high production value. Anyone out there that wants to, talk about, inspire other people, preach the gospel, you don't need multiple cameras. This is a computer. This is a backdrop from my curtains that my wife put up. You don't need anything. So I advise people, use the media that we have currently, whether it's Zoom, Instagram, Facebook, and just use it. I mean, that's it. You don't have to worry about having a camera crew. Just put
I'm in the middle of a book deal right now, so I probably can't say the title yet, but I have a new book I'm working on that was originally expected to be out before the end of this year. I was trying to make an election cycle with it, but it'll likely be spring of 2021. Which means I have a little bit more time to write than I did before. So I'm working on that too, and it's kind of a faith and politics intersection, and really trying to help believers navigate their political view through what the Word says rather than what the news cycle says, regardless of the station. And so how do we really put Christ first in that, and hold ourselves to biblical values and principles for that process. So I think that's going to be a really helpful resource for people. But I was just walking today and got another idea for a devotional, another project. So I'm using this time to incubate and really dream and come up with what's the next couple of years look like. And obviously nobody hardly saw this coming, and so we don't know what the future holds, but we have to be willing and put our hands to the plow and be faithful to those things that God gives us.
Well, I totally agree with you. Thank you, Lucas, for your time. Now, how could people connect with you, whether it's social media? You mentioned your book. What's your website?
So if people want to check out the website, it's Lucas Miles. It's LucasMiles.org. They can also find me on Instagram at Mr. Lucas Miles, Mr. Lucas Miles. And that's where I'm doing those Instagram lives. So I have one almost every single night at 9 p.m. I'm doing right now, or you can click on my IGTV and kind of watch the other ones. Those will be up probably by the end of this week, the first round. And the podcast show, The Lucas Miles Show, it's on faithwire.com. And they can get on their iTunes app or any other podcasting app that they have over 100 episodes with all sorts of Hollywood influencers talking about their faith and their stories. And I think it'll be right up their alley. So thanks for having me on. I appreciate it, Craig.
Oh, thank you, Lucas. I'm a huge fan, great friend. I appreciate it very much. God bless you. Always remember the ability to inspire and evangelize through words and actions. Take care, Lucas. God bless, brother.
Thanks.
Thanks.